Hello and welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul, and my co-host Justin Baker and I are going to be predicting, or more or less letting the general managers of each Four Nations team know who they should select for their teams.
Sounds about right.
That's usually what they do. Like, they wait until we do this show and then they make their selections. That's what they did for the Olympics. That's what they'll be doing this time. We'll get things rolling. There's like 5 or 6 guys for each team that are already predetermined. 6?
Yep.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense because there's 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, and the goalie.
Except not all of them picked that way,
Not
right?
all of them,
Yeah.
right? But
I like your logic, right? One line. So there you go.
right. So the way that we have constructed this is based off of lines. I took what you did and I copied and pasted it, and then I just made changes that I wanted to make. You left some very good players off the board, so I feel like we have to dive into that a little bit. But we will use your lineup as the template, and we'll go from there.
I like it. Yeah. So just so everybody knows, right? So the way I approached this whole thing was I weighed a little bit more heavily on what have you done for me lately? And I don't want to say call it teammates, but like guys that have familiarity with each other, right? They might be currently on the same team. They might have played with each other in the past on different teams, that kind of thing. Because in my opinion, and I don't know what your thought process was going into this, and maybe the general managers for each team might think a little bit differently than I do, which is completely incorrect. And they should really watch the show. Yeah. But for me, it's like, okay, there's only 3 games. It's going to happen all within a week. It's all very, very quick kind of thing. So I think you just want that familiarity because you got to develop chemistry quick, right? So,
yep. I think the first time that Team Canada went that route was the 2014 Olympics, I believe it was, when Mike Babcock was the coach. And they said, we're just picking guys in pairs. Like, almost everybody had a pair. So, yes, some guys got left off, but it was because they wanted those pairs. And that was the way that they did it. Like, I believe they had, Doughty and, was it Alec Martinez?
yes.
That was on that
he's
team?
U.S. Alex Martinez is U.S.
U.S.
But,
Muzzin? Was it Muzzin?
it might have been.
There was lots of little 2 guys that got to make it. Crosby and Kreider. Not Kreider.
Kunitz, yeah.
Crosby and Kunitz, which Kunitz has no business being on Team Canada. Every team has like a high level Canadian on it, so there's no need for Kunitz, but they had the chemistry. But see, in this case, I just go, yes, chemistry's nice, but I'm not going for a guy that's like an actual third liner in replacement of somebody who's a superstar.
That's fair.
All right. Well, which team do you want to start with? One of the European nations?
Yeah,
Finland,
the easy
Sweden?
ones.
I feel like let's start with Finland because I think they're the most obvious. There's not a lot that you're going to do with this team. Like, you're going to take their best players in the NHL, and that's what you're doing. There's not a lot of controversy to me. It's not Barkov, Rantanen, Aho, Lindell, Heiskanen, and Saros are already on this team. And really, outside of that, is it super controversial if one guy makes it and another guy does?
No. And I look on defense for this team, right? They literally only have, I think, 8 defensemen active that have played a few games in the NHL this year. So,
right,
how controversial can you get by leaving one guy off, really?
Right. There's not much to take. Now, excuse me. How many extra players do you get in the tournament? Is it 3?
Yeah, I think it's still a 23-man roster, if I remember correctly. And obviously, you're going to use one of those for a goaltender. And then You've got basically 2 spots left at that point. I divvied it up, 1 forward, 1 defenseman.
Yep. Okay. I guess it's funny that I just got done saying that there was no controversy between these two teams because I believe you left someone very important off this list, off your list. Sorry, I realized that I needed to have both of ours side by side. Now, for your team, Finland, on the right side, you have Rantanen, of course, Teravainen, Kapokako, and Joel Armia. Did you leave Patrick Laine off this list because of injury, or is it because you would prefer Joel Armia over Patrick Laine?
No, I left him off because of injury.
Because he's
There's probably,
skating again as
yeah,
of
and
today.
that's the thing, the uncertainty, right? I don't know where he's going to be until he's back on the ice skating, right? And I know he's healthy. For me, it's just, I'm going to leave him off right now. Like Mark Stone's a good example of this, right? He has played, and his injury I know isn't going to keep him out very long. So that might be a
I have to
situation where it's a
imagine,
little.
like someone like Mark Stone, someone like any of these players, I got to imagine they're looking this like Patrick Laine. He's going to play. He's going to get back for this.
If he's
Like
healthy, absolutely. Yeah.
Montreal, let's face it, it's not like he's gearing up for a playoff run or anything. Yeah, I think that he's a lock to make the team as long as he's healthy.
Yeah, and if
Which
he's
makes
healthy, I'm okay leaving Joel Armia off this team. You can axe him, and then you got someone in that middle six there, I think, can slide down and let Patrick Laine come in.
Yeah, he was the only. Now, yeah, from a forward perspective, I agree. Kokanyemi, like you're gonna get all. If your extra forward is a center, that's your ideal. There's
Ideally.
just unless you have some ridiculously talented extra guy, it just makes sense to have a center because the center can just flop to the wing if they have to. So Joel Armia gets the boot, and Kokanyemi, he can hang around, scores his 8 goals every 82 games. Like,
Let's talk about these lines, right? Because for me, Koka Niemi, when I talked about guys in pairs, when mentioning that, to me, I looked at, okay, Sebastian Aho. He's a guy, if for some reason right now, for example, we'll go through the list, but right now on my second line for Finland, I've got Sebastian Aho centering Lehkonen and Teravainen, right? So Teravainen, he has familiarity with from
there's the
last season.
pair, yep.
Yep. But Kokaniemi can easily slide in on that left side if maybe, say, Granlund or somebody else on that top line with Barkov and Rantanen isn't really working out. You can mix guys up, and I think Kokaniemi might be able to slide in a little bit easier than maybe, say, someone like Erik Haula or even Luosterainen. I think that might be a little bit easier to have him slide in there with Sebastian Aho on the fly.
I think the other challenge is that you're looking at that left side. The left side is very weak for Team Finland when you go Granlund, Lehkonen, Haula, and Luosterainen. Like, all fine players, probably would be classed in the like 2/3 for the lineup in a typical NHL team. So when you're going best on best, I'm not looking at that left side being all that excited. But then you consider you've got Rupe Hintz on the third line right now as the centerman. I'm thinking Rupe Hintz gets a lot of opportunity to go and play with Barkov, to go and play with Aho. I think you're okay if he needs to slide in on the wing and shove him up the lineup a bit.
Yeah, and you could do that, right? Granlund has played center in the past, so you could move him back to the center spot and push him down to maybe that 3 or 4C. Anton Lundell, right, is my 4C right now, so maybe you move him up to 3C between Hala and Capocacco. But again, it's what's available to them right now, and I think for Finland anyways, when you look at we'll get into Canada and in the U.S. later, I think obviously they're the favorites here, or even against Sweden, when you look at what all of these other teams have up and down the middle. But that 4C spot, all of these other teams have very strong top 6 centermen, whereas maybe when you look at Finland, once they get past that 3C with Rupe Hintz, like Anton Lundell, is he really a true number 1, 2C? I think he's filled in quite nicely for Florida, but given his history, I'm not sure how much I trust him to really match up against guys like McDavid and Elias Pettersson night in and night out.
That is I guess if you weren't going to go the Line route, like maybe you're going, I want to have somebody who is used to playing 13, 14 minutes a night. Like maybe you try and have those role, because otherwise you're going, all right, Patrick Laine, can you play a third line role? No. He's not equipped for that. Maybe you get some power play time. Maybe he slots up with Aho, and Aho can help on some of his defensive liabilities. But it just, from a forward perspective, we know what Finland's going to do. They're going to play a very defensive style game. It's always what they do in these tournaments, mostly because they're looking at a roster such as this, where they're top heavy. They aren't nearly as good from a talent perspective as the other teams in the tournament. Unless there's like Slovakia and a host nation of China or where there's just of Japan where they just win 18-0. But when I look at this, I go, Finland is the one kind of outlier where they're good enough.
Yeah, I looked at their roster and I was just like, man, especially with Ovechkin doing what he's doing right now, I'm like, I would have loved to have seen Russia in this tournament. And I know the sanctions and all that other garbage, but part of me
Yeah.
is I would have loved to have seen them in this tournament instead.
I would have, yeah, and I know it. They didn't want to have some kind of like European team,
Mm,
but I think that would have been better. Like it would have been better had it been like Sweden. They're fully stocked. They're fine. They've got their own like between Sweden, USA, Canada. Those are your three top nations that can fill a team full of superstars. And Russia could do the same, but I think when you even so, Sweden I think trumps Russia in a lot of those ways. But it would have been nice to see like a Finland, Russia, and then whatever other countries. But it is what it is. It is disappointing that Alex Ovechkin isn't going to get to play in this tournament.
right.
That's just, and it's not his fault.
No.
That's what I don't like about it. Like you're punishing players. You're not punishing the country, really, in my mind. Anyways,
Yeah.
I digress. Okay, so Finland's defense just is what it is, right? Lindell and Heiskanen are going to be together, and then it's some combination of Mikkola, Mata, Hakanpää, Joki Hairu, and Ristolainen. Gonna
Yeah. Those are my
figure out
seven
what
guys.
works. And
Yeah. And nice part
probably,
is they're a little weak on the right side, but nice part for them, Heiskanen can slide right over, no problem.
and he's gonna have to.
He's going to have to,
I think he's gonna
exactly.
have to. Yeah, there's not even much choice. Goaltending wise, Saros, that's all you need, right?
Yeah. He
There's
could do it.
you're gonna play him every game. And excuse me, I'm nursing a cold here. Both kids had whooping cough.
Ooh.
I didn't get it. Fortunate. And then I think we just caught other something else. There's just been a lot of snot and
A lot of mucus everywhere.
just a lot of fluids flying in the air. So who knows what I got. Yeah, I don't know if it's super like you have Kevin Lankin and Korpisalo. The other possibilities, he's also Finnish, and Capo Kakinen is also Finnish as well. I don't think it matters who you want to pick as your backup because if Saros goes down, there's no shot for Finland.
Yeah.
He's the shot.
And I think that was my main motivation behind Corpusalo, right? I mean, he's having a decent year in Boston, but for me, out of all these goaltenders, UPL, he's been a starter, but I don't really trust him. His numbers have been so up and down throughout his tenure in Buffalo. For me, Corpusalo's had some good seasons, and he's also been a starter with Columbus for a few seasons. So for some reason, again, Saros goes down. He knows what that pressure is like to be the guy, and especially in a bad market. So for me, this is like the bad market, the bad team, right in the tournament right now. If you have to be the lone goaltender for the terrible team in the league, this is a guy that I would trust to be that.
All right. All right. Hey, you're used to being bad. Let's go. I was
No
trying to
offense.
figure out if he has ever played any kind of European on any best on best team for Finland.
We take a look here.
But the other side of it is if a guy's not going to play, do you want to have the what Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen's like what 23, 24?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you want to have the guy who's what Korpisalo's 30, he's been in the league for 10 years now. Like there's some level of like face value and there's some level of hey, this guy actually brings some experience. He has played in playoff games, so there's I think when it comes down to who are we going to pick for our guys who probably aren't going to see much time, you're going to want it to be an older guy. Right? Like somebody who's going to offer something in the locker room maybe that a younger guy might just not and
Yeah,
might not have
give
the
the old guy his chance, right? Because the young guy's going to
right.
have his opportunity.
Sure.
Yeah. But back to your point, so Corpusalo, the Corpedo, has not played in any international stuff for Finland before. UPL though has done the U18s twice, winning gold when he was 17 in 2016, silver in 17, and then in the U20 championships won gold in 2019 for Team Finland.
Yeah, and that is something to consider.
Yep,
At
for
least
sure.
from if we were doing a prediction show, it might actually behoove us to choose him because the Finnish International Hockey Federation is likely to pick guys who have played for them and they know well, and he's done well on that stage. Whereas this is just the team that we would pick. So
Exactly.
that's the guys we'd pick. We don't have any backdoor handshake deals with anybody to get them on the team. All right, that's Finland. Definitely the weakest of the four. Although Barkov and Rantanen, those guys can run wild, and Finland could put up a 5 spot on you before you know what happens. So
Yeah.
it's not as if they're a bad team. They just are not nearly as deep as some of the others.
No, they got good guys down the middle who can play great hockey on both sides of the puck. And they've got a top pairing that I think is going to probably play about 30 minutes a night. And don't sleep on Nico Mikkola either. He's looking pretty good for Florida.
That he is. Yeah, he's been a nice replacement for them. All right, well, let's stay in Europe then. We'll get the 2 North American team last. Let's go Sweden, and I think I had a pretty similar team to you. I made some changes. I wanted to get your thoughts on William Karlsson, dropping him that third line over Elias Lindholm. Yeah, let's start there.
Okay. Should we run through the lines first?
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, let's let the listeners. Okay, so let me tell you what I've got first. So my top line, I've got Zibanejad centering William Nylander and Jesper Bratt. Second line, I've got Pettersson centering Goose Nyquist and Philip Forsberg. So there's that connection.
There's that pair with Nyquist and Forsberg.
Yep. Third line, I've got William Karlsson centering Lucas Raymond and Adrian Kempe. Fourth line, Elias Lindholm centering Zuckerlund and Eklund. And then I've got Leo Carlsson as my reserve forward, who's a guy I think could be an X factor. And maybe, but again, Eklund and Zetterlund, that was a thing, again, where the connection, right, on San Jose.
They're both really get to play on a really terrible team together, and now they get to go play in a good one. This is like the playoffs in some respects. Some of these guys that are not going to make the playoffs, this is their playoffs.
It is their playoffs, for sure.
I'd be curious to see how someone, like, I doubt that, it's not like Mika Zibanejad is going to go, I've got playoffs to think about, so I'm going to not go get that puck. But is there an extra level if you're someone like William Eklund who knows, like, what am I going back to? I'm going back to just improving as a player and growing. It'd be interesting to see what they're willing to give, maybe pushing a little harder, and maybe that allows him to be a little bit more effective in this tournament.
Yeah, I like that mode of thinking there. So
just a thought.
Yeah, on defense, I've got my top pairing, Hedman, with Dahlin on the right side. He's going to slide over. Then my second pairing, I've got Forsling and Rasmus Andersson. And for my third pair, I've got Ekholm and Erik Karlsson, who Sweden's GM did not want anymore. He regrets making the pick already. And then I've got Hampus Lindholm as my reserve guy.
I did not see that. He actually came out and said that.
Yeah, because they've been dogging Karlsson for his defensive play. I think he's like a -16 or something terrible like that. And he literally came out and said, you know what? I wish I hadn't picked him to be one of my 6 right now. He basically said, I wish I could take that back. Kudos to him.
I guess it's surprising that he didn't choose Markstrom as his goalie.
I think after last season, maybe he was like, you know what? We'll see where we are next year. Because, again, I think they've got some good goaltenders. And for me, my 3, I've got Jacob Markstrom, Philip Gustafsson, and Linus Ullmark. So these are three starters, 3 good goaltenders. Why do you have to name one right now?
Yes, but you could have avoided, because you had to name 6 guys. You could have avoided naming Karlsson if you. Sure. The other side of it is Erik Karlsson is, out of all these guys, he is the biggest name in Sweden. I would say
he's got the hardware, right? He's got the Norris Trophy. He's got the 100-point season.
Maybe Hedman's the other one, but Erik Karlsson is phenomenal. And just because he's having a bad season with Pittsburgh, I don't think that necessarily means that he's going to be bad on this team, Sweden. But
no, and that's why I put him with a guy like Ekholm, because you see what he did for Evan Bouchard and how that's worked out. Again, put him on the third pairing, drop him down. He still gets to play 15, 16 minutes a night. Let him do his thing on PP1 if you want, or PP2. But yeah, so for me, Erik Karlsson sits there on that third right side. But back to your point, William Karlsson over Elias Lindholm. For me, I just like the fact that Karlsson, I love what he brings as far as a two-way game is, night in and night out. I think he's very defensive. He's responsible defensively, wins draws, but more to the point over Lindholm. he's proven that he can put up goals in the past and he brings speed. Not to say that Elias Lindholm is slow by any means, but I like Carlson's speed a little bit better and his goal scoring ability, because right now Kempe and Raymond, they're great players, but they don't have a 40 goal year, right? Like William Karlsson did.
That was like 7 years ago.
But he has it, right? So we know he can do it. But again, he's a phenomenal face-off guy too, and so is Elias Lindholm. So I've got, again, really no issue interchanging these guys. But for me right now, over the last year and a half, I just like Karlsson's game just a little bit better, in my opinion.
Fair enough. Yeah, there was just one change that I would make, and that was I'm like Fabian Zetterlund, nice player. He's pretty easily swapped out to me, and I want Michael Backlund on this team.
I thought about it.
You want to bring in a guy who's the captain of the Calgary Flames. I think he's a great choice to have on this team, where you have a lot, like you look at this roster, it's a lot of guys who play roles that aren't a captain type of role. I guess Zibanejad maybe is the other best choice in that matter. If I was looking at this team and I said, who's going to be the captain? I guess you probably pick Zibanejad, but there's not really anyone else on this team where you go, oh, he's totally captain material. Like William Nylander, not a captain.
Victor Hedman for me,
yeah.
but
Victor Hedman, yes.
Captain.
Yes, Erik Karlsson was the captain, but Victor Hedman, he is the captain because the captain left.
That's fair.
Michael Backlund he's talented enough to make this team, and I think he just offers something a little bit different. That he is a leader in the dressing room, and I think he fits well with this team. I think you also want to have. I actually dropped Lindholm and Karlsson playing together.
Oh, okay.
Two centermans playing together, and playing with Eklund. Whereas then I've got Backlund and Kempe and Raymond, but you could scoot those around. I think Sweden has a lot of really good defensive, like two-way forwards.
Mm-hmm.
If you include my list with Backlund and Lindholm, Karlsson, I like those combination of guys. Even you move further up the lineup, like Nyquist, you've got Pettersson has gotten a little bit better defensively. I think adding in Backlund does give that two-way guy that if there's something Finland has over Sweden, it's that Barkov effect. Finland is probably better up the middle at the high end. Hey,
I would say the one thing.
Yeah.
The one thing with Pettersson, right, is there's been a knock on his two-way game, right? Zibanejad, it's all right. It's not phenomenal, but it's not bad either. He plays a lot of penalty kill minutes.
Yep.
But yeah, when you get a little bit further down, the thing with Finland is they've got high-end talent that can play both ends of the puck, whereas I think Zibanejad might be really the only one you could say that to, and he's still a tier below Aho and Barkov, in my opinion.
He's not like he's going to win a Selke, but
right,
he's
exactly.
Like, all right, yeah, you're fine defensively, yeah. And he kills penalties, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But defensively, this team is far better than Finland, and the fact you can roll out Hedman, Dahlin, Forsland, the fact that Erik Karlsson's just on the third pairing. I know he hasn't been great for the Penguins, but still, you're still in a great position if that's you're like, maybe we shouldn't have named him to the team, which is a really stupid thing to say because now what's he going to back out?
Right, exactly. Maybe fake an injury right before the tournament.
You could find yourself in a situation where you want to have Hampus Lindholm play and you have Erik Karlsson sit, but I would think that they'll find a spot for him.
Yeah, I did actually consider instead of Hampus Lindholm because, again, thinking about Erik Karlsson and his defensive inefficiencies, I really considered adding a guy like Adam Larsson to this team who plays on that right side, but in Seattle, man, he has turned up that defensive game. Might not be the nicest point guy like an Erik Karlsson, but he'll shut you down. And I think, again, that's something Sweden doesn't lack at any point is guys who can play defense, but having more of that, it's not going to hurt either.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're looking at it and you're like, would you really leave Erik Karlsson off for Adam Larsson?
No, you would make Erik Karlsson would be your seventh guy, and you could have him ride Pine, or maybe just swap him and Ekholm out every once in a while, and who knows? But again,
they're very deep defensively, and
yes,
from a goaltending. So we've got Markstrom, Gustafsson, and Allmark listed as the goaltenders. I know the other, I guess, other choices out there would be like Jesper Wallstedt. But that's about it. Uh,
You could go, oh gosh, you could probably throw out Samuel Urson from
Urson,
Philly,
yeah.
but yeah,
But
you're very
I think
limited.
those three guys, when you look at that, who's your starter? Is it Markstrom? Are you like pretty solid on Markstrom, or would you allow for some competition there?
I probably would allow for some competition. I think coming into this season, I probably would have leaned towards Linus Allmark just because the recent hardware he has over the other two guys. But when you look at what you've gotten out of Gustafson this season, how well he's looked, Markstrom hasn't been phenomenal, but he's been good enough. For me, that I think because Markstrom hasn't blown me away this year, I think that leaves it open for competition right now.
Okay. Yeah, Gustafson's been fantastic this year too.
Yeah.
It's and Markstrom really hasn't been phenomenal. Neither has Allmark. Maybe he's the guy that ends up being the selection. Yeah, but you've got three guys that you really can't go wrong with, and I hope that Markstrom can figure it out. Just because this is probably his shot
Yeah.
here for
I agree.
Markstrom to do it.
And I think it'll probably end up being something where it's whatever goaltender is coming in the hottest, right? Who's ever on that heater coming into this tournament is probably
Yeah,
who they're going to roll with.
it's true. Okay, there's Team Sweden. Anything else do you want to add?
No,
Okay.
not really.
All right, are we doing USA or Canada first?
Let's save Canada for last.
All right, Canada for
Yeah.
last. I actually, after really looking at both these rosters, I think the U.S. is the favorites
I think yes, just because of the
because the
lack of
goaltending.
goaltending.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the goaltending, honestly, and yeah, it's the goaltending. The goaltending is just. It's very interesting to consider that at one point you were looking at like Broder, Patrick Waugh, Curtis Joseph, all three Hall of Famers were in competition with each other. It's crazy that now you're left with who do you pick?
I know. And coming into this offseason, you thought about it last year, this summer when we heard about this tournament about who could be the possibility, who could be their starter. You thought about names like Stuart Skinner and
Stuart Skinner, Aiden Hill.
yeah, and you're like, oh man, these guys have had pretty decent seasons. They're not great seasons, but they should be good enough to be shoo-ins, right, for this tournament. And it's not so fast. They all have looked like even like Sam Montembeault, I thought, being a Habs goaltender, he would probably get a little bit more of an edge just being from that Canadian market there. But no, not again. These guys have not looked comfortable. They have not looked good this season. And so why bother going with the guys you had? Mix it up. Let's throw in
Right.
some new names.
The guy who's had the best season so far, you've got Cam Talbot, Jordan Binnington, and Logan Thompson. Logan Thompson is the only guy in there that hasn't been beaten yet.
Very
Nobody
true.
beat him. He's had a really great year so far. And Cam Talbot, yes, but he's just like one loose skate blade away from being injured and out for the year. Like he just is constantly hurt. And that would give me a little bit of pause. Jordan Binnington is going to make this team. He's the one goaltending lock to me that's going to make this team. But I don't know if that means that he's going to be the starter. I just think he's the one guy who it's like Binnington's going to be on the team.
Yeah. Are we talking about Canada right now? Because that's what's happening.
Oh, yep. I was talking about Canada. Yep.
I don't want to get derailed too much. I want to get back to the U.S. But
Okay.
Yeah. Because I could go on for the next 20 minutes.
Thinking about Canada. I don't know.
Let me run through the roster here for U.S. Top line, I've got the Tkachuk brothers, centered by Austin Matthews. Second line, I've got Jack Eichel with Tage Thompson on the right side and Jack Hughes on the left. And I'll get into the Hughes thing in a minute because I'm sure a lot of people have him written in for center, but not for me for this tournament. Third line, I've got JT Miller centering Kyle Connor and Jake Gensel. And then on that fourth line, I've got Dylan Larkin with Alex DeBrincat and Patrick Kane with Cole Caulfield as my 13th forward. And then on defense, I've got Quinn Hughes and Charlie McAvoy up top. Second line or second pairing, or even maybe you could consider them the first pairing too, really. I got Jacob Slavin, Adam Fox, and then rounded off by Zach Werenski, John Carlson with Brock Faber as the number 7 defenseman. And then I think a goaltender, I think this one's already written in stone, but this is Connor Hollabuck's team. And then I've got Jake Ottinger. And then as a surprise, I've got Jonathan Quick as my number 3 goaltender for this team.
Yeah, I saw the Jonathan Quick one. I quickly changed that. I quickly changed that to Jeremy Swayman.
Fair. Yeah, I know everybody else has Swayman in there, but honestly,
I don't know how can you leave Swayman off the team? I guess some people might be like, Quick's having a great start to the season. How can you leave him off?
well, okay, here's my reasoning
Ottinger's
behind
the more likely to be left off.
maybe, but okay, so here's the reasoning behind having a guy like Jonathan Quick in here, right? So we obviously know about the he is a 3-time Stanley Cup champion, right? But he's got the hardware to prove it. And he is the guy who basically, in my opinion, with LA, both of those cup wins, he was a large reason why they won.
Sure.
They just played a system that favored
Yep.
goaltending so well. But look, he's coming here in New York and just put up phenomenal numbers this year, last year. He looks unbeatable so far this season. Again, if for some reason, say Connor Hellebuyck goes down, right? Maybe you could rely on Ottinger or Swayman, but if for some reason a fluke accident happens and you decide you want to throw in Jonathan Quick, he's a guy who's been in a pressure cooker like this. He has the experience where guys like Ottinger and Swayman maybe are just lacking a little bit more, where I feel like Quick has shown in the past he could potentially steal a tournament, whereas I think for Swayman, I haven't seen that yet.
But it
So
was
that's why I
so
left him up.
long ago when
I
he
know it was a long
actually
time ago.
was amazing.
I know.
And Swayman did steal a playoff series from the Leafs.
I don't know if you want to call it
Yeah.
steal, but I will say Jake Ottinger definitely has stolen a series. So that's why he's my number 2 there. But for me, Jonathan Quick, even if you just consider that it's been a long time, for me, it's just more or less, okay, just give the veteran guy one more crack at a U.S. tournament, right? Swayman's going to get his shot,
All
no
right,
pun
fair enough.
intended.
Fair enough. And I don't think it matters because Hellebuyck's going to play all of those games anyway.
Exactly.
Unless there's maybe one of the exhibition games where they don't need him to play. That's, he could play maybe one game he doesn't play. But once we get into the tournament portion of it, On defense, I have no argument with the defense that you had going on there. Like Quinn Hughes and McAvoy, like Slavin and Fox, Werenski, Carlson, and Faber. There's really no one else that you can go, oh, you forgot about this guy. There's just not. So
Right.
I'm okay with that. There was one change I made. It was I don't know which guy. I'm taking out either Patrick Kane or Alex DeBrincat, and I'm bringing in Jason Robertson because I want the extra speed. I think it's going to be super important. Not that both those. I think it's probably Kane is the guy that I would take out from the roster. I'm going to take Caulfield off the team, and Patrick Kane becomes my like extra forward, and then Jason Robertson, or maybe Jason Robertson becomes the extra forward, and you see what needs to fit. I just don't. I can't leave Jason Robertson off this team. The way I know that he has struggled to start the year, and he's still 109 points 2 years ago, 80 points last year. Like that guy's still there, and the 80-point Jason Robertson far more defensively responsible as well. So I think that is also an advantage.
That's fair, and that's a reasonable argument. For me, I can't see leaving Patrick Kane off this.
Yeah,
Just all he's meant to USA.
His at playing for Team USA, you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can see the argument for leaving Cole Caulfield. I could even see the argument leaving Alex DeBrincat off this, right? Because Cole Caulfield is the young gun. He's putting up goals right now. He brings speed. So I could absolutely see that. And we know, at least I know watching Detroit all the time, right? Alex DeBrincat does go through some cold streaks where he'll go a few games without scoring. So
he just vanishes from the game.
yes,
we saw that in Ottawa a lot. I see that in Detroit. Yeah.
So I could absolutely see that. And I think the reason I just kept him in this tournament was just because, again, I think he and Kane complement each other so well. I hope that
Kane and
chemistry.
Larkin all play on the same team, so fair. But yeah, other than that, man, if Matthews is playing in between the Kachuk brothers, it's going to be unreal. Like
they're going to make space for him all day.
Tournament. What's that?
Yeah, I said they're going to make space for him all day. Is all they're going to do, and he's just going to. That shot is just unreal. I can't wait to watch it, and that's part of the reason too. I wanted to move a guy like Tage Thompson off the center. He's okay at the draw, but I moved him and Hughes off the center position because they're not as good the circle as guys like JT Miller and Larkin are. But Tage Thompson, I think, will create all kinds of space for a guy like Jack Hughes and Eichel to rip it, and just you got a couple guys who can put up 40 goals, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, from a goal scoring perspective, this team is terrifying. there isn't a guy on this. Maybe Brady Kachuk's the worst goal scorer on this team,
Right. Now that's saying something.
right? Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. Yeah, I would say Team USA from like when we were kids, like in high school, they were always like they had some good high end guys, they had good depth, but they never had the superstar power that Canada had. And then now you look at it and you're like, it is pretty darn even. Like,
Yeah. If you take out Connor McDavid, I think he upsets every playing field, but you could go toe to toe with anybody on the rest of this
but
team.
that's also 10 years ago. You would say that about Sidney Crosby, probably.
Absolutely.
Like, Canada's just always seemed to have the best player.
It's rightfully so, right?
They
It's the
need
nation
something.
sport. They need something. I won't argue with you there. It's just, it's not fair that they always produce the guy. But Matthews we know he's the best goal scorer in the league right now. So I'll give that to USA and let Canada have the rest of it. But yeah, for me, you know what the other thing is too? I know a lot of people are recently picking on JT Miller. So I will say that is part of the reason I stuck him with Jake Gensel. I love Gensel's two-way play and analytics. So I'm hoping maybe that kind of balances out a little bit.
Yeah.
But he'll put up points. That's for sure. Yeah. But this team, they're still going to. The thing I love most about this team, and part of the reason I picked maybe some of the guys that I did, and there's also another player for Canada's roster I thought about putting on there that I didn't. And maybe they do, just because when you look at this USA roster between the Kachuk brothers and Tage Thompson, JT Miller, and even you could throw Dylan Larkin in there a little bit, just how big this team is, right? They're gonna hurt you. They're gonna punish you, and they can still score goals.
All right. Yeah, it's going to be so fun to watch.
It is, yeah.
I think my biggest issue is like my whole entire life. Like I'm born in Toronto and obviously a Leafs fan, but I'm American now. Like I let my little Canadian stuff all go away, and I don't even have a Canadian passport anymore. I'm sure that I could find the form and get something back, but I consider myself American, so I feel like I have to cheer for Team USA. But I've never cheered for Team USA. Like I've always once, probably like 2014 Olympics, I was like, I hope the USA does well. I think there was a little bit like, all right, I'm going to cheer for the US except for when Canada's playing them. And I feel very torn now. I'm like, who do I cheer for?
I think
Like,
Austin Matthews probably doesn't help your argument either. So.
right? Seriously. Yeah, I know. And that's just maybe, I've got a 50-50 chance of winning this whole entire tournament because I can just cheer for both teams.
There you go.
But I think when it comes to hockey, it's just like the one place that I think Canada, I'll never forget the 2002 Olympics with like Lemieux opening his legs up, letting that puck go past to Korea. And like that win was just so much fun. And I'll never forget that. So I think there's always like something buried deep inside of me that's just, I'm going to have to cheer for Canada, but I can also cheer for the US. So
hey, there you go.
My heart is big. My heart is big. So, all right, let's do the behemoth Team Canada here. Run down your lineup choice.
Okay.
And then I'll rip it to shreds.
Good. To start things off, I've got McDavid centering, Zach Hyman, and yes, you heard this correctly, Sidney Crosby on the wing. Just to quickly explain that theory, I think Canada, much like the U.S., are just loaded with a lot of quality centers. And I've watched the Penguins right now put Crosby on the wing with Malkin recently, and I thought, you know what? Fuck it. Let's put him on the wing. Let's see how this works, because especially I'm sure like everybody else, it'd be great to see Crosby and McDavid on the same team, but I want to see them on the same line and just see how they complement each other. Yep. So let's do that. And I know, again, Crosby in the past, Team Canada has played with Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeron, but Bergeron's not here. Marchand can go suck a nut and go play with McKinnon on the second line. And then I've got Mitch Marner on their wing as well. Marner plays a great defensive game, and I think he'll just complement the speed of McKinnon very well. And then, of course, just having a little bit of chirpiness with Marchand will help. And then for the third line, I've got Braden Point with Brandon Hagel, that Tampa connection. And then the Florida connection on the right wing with Reinhart. And then for my fourth line, this is where it gets a little bit where you could maybe swap a guy in or out. I've got Mark Scheifele at center with Mark Stone on the wing and Travis Konechny as well, because I just love Konechny's two-way game. He plays smart hockey, and he can still put the puck in the back of the net. The only thing I might swap out there I thought about putting in a Tom Wilson just for the bruise factor against the
Ooh,
USA. But yeah, for my 13th forward, I've got Nick Suzuki just because you could never have enough centermen. So he got the nod just for
that's
that.
the centerman's going to get the nod for me, like we said earlier. It make 1-2 changes to your forward lineup,
Okay.
which is going to really mess with your lines. Uh, First off, there is no way on God's green earth that Connor Bedard doesn't make this team.
I don't know. You know what? I consider that too,
Yes, he
but
is going to make this team.
I don't
There's no way.
know.
You're going to put Nick Suzuki over Connor Bedard.
Oh, okay. Maybe not. But what I will
Travis
say,
gonna Brandon Hagel's going to make this team instead of Connor Bedard.
possibly. I mean, look,
I
Connor
don't think
Bedard,
so.
he's having an okay year, but the problem when you get to Connor Bedard is he's just so small for me. I think when you look at the behemoth that USA is physically, he's just going to shrivel up just like a cold penis coming out of the pool. I think it's. I just don't think it's gonna play in their favor to bring a guy like that on. And he's only got 13 points in 18 games, which yes, you make that argument. Okay, this guy has no one else to play
Garbage
with
team.
besides Tyler Bertuzzi, who again is a middle six guy. And again, I just think he still has more on both ends of the ice to learn. I think he still has to get there, and he's young. He'll have plenty of tournaments, plenty of Olympics to play in. So for me, I'm giving the nod to Nick Suzuki because I trust his center position, his center play a little bit better at that position. He can actually win draws, which Connor Bedard is absolutely garbage at. So for me,
How about
that's
there's a different perspective that is probably being tossed around,
let's
is
hear it.
that the Four Nations tournament is a warm up to the Olympics.
Okay.
So who are we going to pick for the Olympics? Let's be honest. The team that they pick here in 2 years going to the Olympics, this is going to be the team. Like maybe swapping out a few guys. I think for Team USA, that's probably like a Patrick Kane. But if Patrick Kane doesn't make this team and they put someone else on there, maybe they go, the reason we didn't pick him is because he's not available for the Olympics. So we're just going to go with the guys. This is like our Olympic roster.
That's
I think
fair. If that's your motive, if that's the
but
reason you're picking these rosters, yeah, absolutely. Then I could see Bedard make that. But for me,
Bedard's
he
going to be
isn't
on that
there.
Olympic team.
He definitely will. In 2 years, I think he'll have grown enough physically and just that hockey IQ on both ends of the ice. I think will be a little bit stronger where you can easily make a case for him at that point.
Yeah. He's making my Team Canada team,
Fair.
and he's playing next to McDavid and Hyman.
Oh, all the way at the top. All right.
All the way at the top. Crosby, he's going to play with his BFF, Nathan McKinnon, Brad Marchand, who Brad Marchand should have signed in Pittsburgh years ago. They would have been much better off. They probably would have won another cup. Instead, he stayed in Boston and just tortures me as a Leafs fan. I slot Marner down onto the third line. I wasn't exactly sure where to put him. I could see a scenario then where Bedard finds his way to the third line and Marner plays up with McDavid and Hyman as well, because Marner has that Hyman connection. That was an interesting thing to me, was like putting Marner and McDavid, which McDavid just doesn't have that Marner that Matthews has always had, and then Hyman. So, or maybe Marner's like a reasonable substitute for a Draisaitl, where like you have a very talented winger there. So that's what I was thinking. Then my one other swap out, I took Konechny out. I want Matthew Barzal on this team.
That's
so I don't really care where he fits in. If that's on the wing, fine. Or you move Scheifele to the wing and Barzal can play center. But I think he's just too fast and too good to leave off the team.
That's fair. Yeah, I don't hate the Barzal ad. Don't like. You know what I would like to see, because I think outside of Crosby, he's probably the best defensive player on this team. I think Mitch Marner playing with McDavid would be fun for me to watch.
Yeah, true. Yeah, there's a lot of fun combos.
Yeah, and speaking of combos, so on defense, again, we've got Cale Makar, the shoe-in, already been picked for this roster. That was a foregone conclusion, but I've got Morgan Riley playing on his left side to start. I know a lot of people might have, there's a lot of other defensemen you could probably pick, but for me, I think this is a guy who's put in his dues and has shown he can play just so well on both sides of the puck. And just, he's so responsible defensively and has been for Toronto for so long. I think that'll allow, again, Makar to do his thing. Now, a lot of guys have been picking Devin Tays, right, to be the shoe-in, to be that partner.
Yep.
But I just don't really, I'm not, Devin Tays hasn't shown it to me this year yet. He looks okay, but he doesn't look great. And for a tournament where I think that top pair is going to have to be great. I just haven't seen it yet from Devin Tays this year. And maybe my second pairing, maybe they're your top pair where they go out against the team's top forwards every night. But at this point, it doesn't matter what line you consider as the top forward. But on my second pairing, I've got Shea Theodore and Alex Pietrangelo from
That one
Vegas.
I think is an absolute lock of a pairing.
Yep, for sure. And then my third pairing is where it gets a little funky, where, again, you could swap in and out guys again. But Josh Morrissey, to me, is almost a lock to make this team too. But on the right side, Aaron Ekblad, who I think is just going to be a wild card just because he plays such a good defensive game. I think when you got to have that guy who can play those lockdown minutes, because when I look at Alex Pietrangelo, maybe he's slowing down a little bit, but I still think he's very effective defensively. I think Ekblad has just the, I don't want to say just the, he's a touch above him when it comes to that play. And we saw it last season in the Florida's big run. And then I've got Mackenzie Weegar as your seventh defenseman.
I don't hate it. I'm taking Mackenzie Weegar out, putting Morgan Riley as my seventh defenseman.
Okay.
Aaron Ekblad is off the team, and Noah Dobson is on the right side of Josh Morrissey.
Dobson.
So that's the one swap I'm going to make. I can't leave Noah Dobson off this team.
Okay. I struggled with that one too, but for me, I like Aaron Ekblad's two-way game just a little bit more.
I just think that Aaron Ekblad, if we just look at his last two seasons in the NHL, like he is
the
not
offensive
a
numbers?
top line defenseman. I think
and that's why he's playing third pairing right now.
Yes, but third pairing in a tournament best on best, there's better guys. I'll take Morgan Riley over Aaron Ekblad in that case.
Yeah, I would too, of course. But
yeah,
but what's nice,
Devin Taves is like Devin Taves and Makar. It's going to happen.
Yeah,
I can't see a scenario where they don't take them both because it's just too easy. It's too easy to go. You guys just continue playing together, right? Like,
yeah,
it eliminates a lot of extra getting to know you things, and I think that's probably what they'll do.
That's fair, and
also helps that McKinnon's there as well.
Yeah, but I know it's funny because a lot of like predictions I've looked at, they all, for whatever reason, leave Morgan Riley off this. And for me, he's the most versatile, can move from left to right side guy, I think, outside of Shea Theodore, that this roster probably has. I don't see how you leave him off, honestly.
I think he's a good seventh guy because if anyone gets hurt, like you're saying, versatility, if someone gets hurt, you can bring him in and have him play anywhere.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then in goal, I've got Cam Talbot, Jordan Binnington, and Logan Thompson. And this is similar to Sweden's goaltending situation where I think it's just going to be hottest goaltender going into the tournament is probably going to take it.
Right now, really, your team's so good in front of you that it's just going to – I can see a little bit of Binnington played with Pietrangelo, and he had his best years with Pietrangelo in front of him. Sure. There could be some of that.
He's the only one. He's got the ring, right? Yes, Logan Thompson has one, but he didn't really earn that ring, right? He was playing backup minutes. Whereas Binnington, I think, was a big reason why they won. Maybe you give him the nod just because he has that mantle on his trophy on his mantle, but I don't know. Cam Talbot to me is the wild card here. I think he's playing good this season, but who knows with him, right? You talked about his health. That is a concern for sure. So he might not even be ready to go.
I'm going to throw one more defenseman out there. That could be like a seventh defenseman. Very versatile also. Colton Parayko.
Okay.
Number one defenseman on his team and takes a lot of the responsibility and can throw hits. Like we're talking about size, needing size. Riley isn't that guy if you need size. Now, that's probably what that seventh defenseman, 13th forward, that's probably what those positions are going to come down to is what do we feel like we need more of so that we can insert into the lineup if we find that we're lacking.
Yeah, I'll tell you, if I want size, and if you talk about maybe potentially gearing up for a run in 2 years at the Olympics, you might not pass up on Owen Power, who's a guy that's looked decent in Buffalo, and he's 6'6", so he is not lacking, and we know he can play left and right side. So
Canada is not lacking for defensemen.
No, just they goalies. Are not.
Just goalies. All right, based on these rosters, where are you going? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Ooh. I think one, I'm going USA just because I think when push comes to shove, goaltending's going to take it in this tournament. That's, I think, probably going to end up being a high-scoring tournament. But For me, number 2, Canada, again, just because of the goaltending, right? They may end up like Swiss cheese at some point where they're going to have to win games 6-5, 7-6. At number 3, Sweden, and 4, Finland.
Okay. I'm going to swap Canada and the U.S.
Fair.
Because Hellebuck has proven time and time again that when we get to tournament time, Swiss cheese, like you're talking about. So that's my only hesitation. And I think ultimately Canada just they have so many high-end players everywhere. Man, both of those teams, it's going to be like a 1-goal game in overtime anyways. And that's not even giving enough credit to Sweden, because Sweden is very close as well. Like they have incredibly high-end guys, just maybe not all the superstar talent that those two teams have. So Finland is my easy 4. There's a scenario where Sweden wins. There's a scenario where Canada wins. There's a scenario where the U.S. wins. I don't see Finland winning, which means Finland's probably going to win.
Probably. Although I will say, in Olympic past, they always seem to sneak up on everybody. Yep. They always seem to fly under the radar just because, again, they play that.
They lull you to sleep.
Exactly. So who knows? They may end up finishing number 2 in this tournament. And
I hope not. I hope we see a Canada-U.S. final, a Finland-Sweden bronze medal game, and I'll be happy.
Yeah, I want a high-scoring tournament too. Yeah, I want to see some 6-5 games all day.
Love it. Love it. All right, there's our 4 nations roster suggestions. Not predictions, suggestions. And Justin, have a great night. To our listeners, enjoy the rest of your day, and we will talk to you and talk more about what's happening in the NHL on our next episode. We'll talk to you guys soon.